Morning, everyone, to the S&D press conference this morning. I hand over to our Group President, Udo Buhlmann.
Yes, welcome and good morning from my side as well. Another exciting week is waiting for us. We have today Bundeskanzlerin Merkel. Will be an interesting situation in the plenary to listen to her. She comes in a situation where there is a lot of discussion also in her own party back home, because she, as you know, she indicated that she will not stand again as president of the Conservative Group in December. There is some question marks where to go with the CDU and where to head for, who is the successor possibly. Will that still be a politics of Merkel style, or will there be any change? There are a lot of domestic discussions, a lot of European awareness on that. What is important for our party group? What is important for the group of Socialists and Democrats? Of course, and this is not the question, I expect her to give a pro-European opinion, a pro-European speech. That is not at stake, and I don't have any doubts. The very question is, what kind of leadership does she invest as the most important political figure in German politics and as a decisive player in the PPE? Because many problems we have in Europe to organize progress, to solve problems having to do with a lack of leadership and a lack of orientation inside the PPE family. You have Jean-Claude Juncker as the Commission's president, you have Mr. Tusk as the president of the European Council, you have Mr. Tajani as the president of the European Parliament. This is all PPE, but you also have Mr. Kurz in Austria as the Council president, and you have still Mr. Orban. What kind of PPE are we talking to? What kind of PPE are we dealing with? You cannot at the same moment be on the side of Jean-Claude Juncker and on the side of Mr. Kurz and Mr. Orban. So this is very tricky. And I'm looking forward how she is going to position herself in this chaos, in this party chaos of the PPE. But again, much of our situation where solutions are blocked, where we fail to find quick and proper answers to major challenges having to do with the situation in that family. This is also why we have a second topic dealing with similar questions. Our political group organized pressure to have the UN Global Compact for Migration as a discussion point tonight, because you saw we did our utmost to get something done with UN Gensec Antonio Guterres, and he invested himself a lot to make progress, international progress in migration and solidarity for migration flows. But we see European governments backing off from that, turning their back to this approach. And especially it's a scandal for me that the presidency of the Council, that Austria, Mr. Kurz, is backing off from this migration compact. And the question is why? Why are they doing that? The answer is very simple. We have here a progress, symbolic as well as practically, that global phenomenon have to be answered by multilateral solutions. Multilateral solutions, that is the method of the United Nations. Multilateral solutions, that is the method of the European Union. And if the presidency of the European Union, if the government of Austria is turning its back to multilateral solutions and to the method of the European Union, what a crisis in this PPE family. What a crisis, what a mess of intellectual and political orientation in the PPE. So we will question the role of Mr. Kurz in this debate, and we will also question the general line of European development that is one aspect of the debate with Madame Merkel, one aspect of the debate on the Compact for Migration. Topical debate, EU resilience against foreign influence on the European Parliament's election campaign, a very important one. Our group was spearheading this discussion quite a while already. We need more than nice words. We need rapid reaction. We need rapid preparation to have a proper election campaign without any interferences from foreign forces and interested players. At the end of the day, it is about member states they have to bring down the websites and they have to enforce European law. We again and again ask the Council to deblock the e-privacy regulation, because this is the best method to fight abuse of data and to organize data protection. But we also need a strong political stance as a concerted action of the member states, and we will lead a debate in this respect. The last element I would like to point out to is the multi-annual financial framework. We have voted broadly on our report on the next MFF on the 5th of November. It is a very ambitious stance that was taken by the European Parliament. That means we will not be satisfied with half-hearted reforms and with half-hearted programs. We, after the vote this week, will be ready to negotiate, but we will not be under pressure from any side. So that is what is the main points from my side for this week. And now I'm happy to receive your comments and your questions.
Danke, Udo Bullmann.
Thank you very much, Udo Bullmann.
Kushevich ce soir. Hello. Two questions. You didn't mention as one of the topics the resolution or the resolutions on Romania. What is and what will be your attitude in this vote, and what do you have to say about it? You mentioned Orban, but it's a third file in this chapter which has been opened now. And about Chancellor Merkel, you mentioned, you raised the question about what will be the style of the new leadership, and you mentioned will it be the Merkel style? Could you please elaborate on what politically, of course, how do you describe what is the fundamental, what are the fundamental elements of politically of the Merkel style?
There's good and the bad. In the Merkel style. The Merkel style was, of course, on substance committed to the pro-European way. My criticism on Merkel is not that she has not been performing as a pro-European. My criticism on Merkel was and still is that she was not fighting for Europe. I can give best proof in the days when we were in the climax of the Greek crisis. In the climax of the Greek crisis, Conservative Commission's President Barroso proposed a European solution of how to tackle the financial crisis in Europe. Schäuble and Merkel insisted on a national way to tackle that. This gave birth to the Troika mechanism, which was not only progress. You know all the problems of the Troika. Politics and their implementation. There was a lack of parliamentary control. There was no say in the European Parliament. There was also a lack of national parliamentarian control. And at the end of the day, it was the government of bureaucrats. And many of the shortcomings and failures in Portugal, in Greece, were due to that fact that the architecture was not put on the right place. She never gave a big speech in Germany to defend the Eurozone. She never explained to people why it's first of all, also deeply German interest to stabilize the euro and the eurozone. And if you look at the right-wing development, the extremist development in Germany, you could see that the Alternative für Deutschland started as an anti-euro movement and developed towards an extremely right-wing and xenophobian party. So it could have been stopped with an outspoken speech. It could have been stopped with an outspoken fight and explanation. As a comparison, if you ask me what do you mean, one of the last big speeches Helmut Schmidt gave as an elder statesman was on a SPD party convention when he said, in his typical personal wisdom, when he said, don't forget in economics, in the Eurozone, the permanent surpluses of the ones are by nature the permanent deficits of the others. So he was obviously able, so this is like a statesman has to speak, he was obviously able to put a very complex economic interrelationship into the explanation of one clear-cut sentence. I never ever had Madame Merkel in all her years in a one-liner like that. So this is a lack of political leadership. And the lack of political leadership, if it comes from Germany, the Germans have to pay, but all the others as well. So this is my plus and my negative on Merkel. Having said that, it can be worse, of course. Of course, there is a certain tendency within the PPE in Germany, the CDU and the CSU, to turn to the right and to fish, or they think they would fish into the electorate of the right wing. When you saw what Seehofer was doing ahead of the Bavarian regional elections, you could identify that 100%, the attempt to hijack European questions, European policy making on refugees, on migration, in order to fix a more positive result in a regional election. This is a disgrace for German statesmanship. You cannot allow yourself, because of a regional defeat, to put at risk European solutions. So this is what I mean. It could be worse than Merkel. Insofar, there is a whole lot of attention on the development of the conservatives in Germany, and my party, the SPD, has of course to confirm permanently our firm stance on pro-European course. That is on the one question. The other question was Romania, of course. Our group was promoting to have a resolution, but we will take care that this resolution is precise and that this resolution is also a resolution that contributes to the truth, to the correct analysis of the situation, and to the improvement in the country. So it's totally mistaken to put Romania on equal footing when it comes to Article 7 with Hungary and Poland. This is not the situation. We go strictly in the identification together with the Venice Commission, and that is what guides us on this topic.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Follow up on Romania. Romania Television, Lucian Pervoiu. We do not have only the resolution today. We have also the publication of the report on MCV on Romania and Bulgaria, which apparently is very critical to Romania. How about that? Is it possible to get to the phase in which Article 7 could be triggered? Because the resolution is a resolution, but the report on MCV is a totally different and more critical thing. Thank you.
Again and again, I have not heard any voice from the Commission or any voice, reliable voice, truthful voice in the Parliament asking for Article 7. There is room for improvement, and improvement has to be taken in many, many respects. But for instance, the comparison, this is what you know personally, the comparison of the media situation between Romania and Hungary and Poland is not on equal footing. Beg your pardon, you know it. There's much more room for pluralistic, critical media reports in Romania than it is in Poland or in Hungary. So again, the situation is not comparable, but my group have never taken a blind eye on anything. We welcome the dedication of the Romanian government when they say that they will comply with the Venice Commission. We appreciate that, but that has also then to be implemented.
Green, please, and then we go to the left.
Yes. Two questions for you. Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself,
Yes,
please?
I'm sorry. Domina Diamantopoulou from the municipal radio station of Athens, Greece. Do you think that the SPD performed adequately versus the Merkel style, as you said? And another question. On Saturday, Alexis Tsipras participated in the Debattenkampf. Is Tsipras an ally for you in the European Parliament?
When Alexis gave his speech in Berlin, I was sitting next to him and I was following his speech, of course. But this is not the first time that we had the chance to exchange our views. Greece is very direct to my heart. I was following the development in Greece when I was a member of the Economic Committee and when I, as a German Social Democrat, permanently was criticizing Schäuble and the Troika. And my feelings are very warm for the development in Greece and for especially the chances of ordinary people to get their feet again on the ground. This is one of our most important goals when treating the situation in Greece. But I am on speaking terms with a lot of progressive forces. That applies for my good friends from Topotami, that applies for my good friends in PASOK, and I also have friends in Syriza, and I permanently talk to them, and we already went to Athens as a group organizing exchanges of views between all of them. So, because the question at stake is not so much a question of divided forces in the political spectrum. The question for me is much more where to go to and what are our goals in politics and in the economic sphere. You will know that our group has renovated our own program, that we dedicated ourselves to the Sustainable Development Goals, that we say, like Jeffrey Sachs is saying, they have to be the compass of modern politics. And I was discussing with a broad spectrum of Greek forces whether they could add on this, whether they could contribute to a concept of that, and what could it mean for the Greek development, domestic development. So I'm very interested in having exchanges with all progressive forces. Yes, I will not slip over that. Did the SPD always take the right stance when it came to Merkel? And what is our policy on that? You have seen that it was the SPD to negotiate that important point in the coalition agreement on Europe and European progressive development. That is due to us. Neither the CDU nor the CSU would have thought about bringing across that kind of a progressive approach to European politics. And for me personally, and for many of my comrades, this was the decisive reason to say yes to a grand coalition that is dedicated to progressive Europe, but now they have to deliver in this government, and that will be the politics of my friends in the coalition.
There was a question in the back. Yes, please.
My name is Anca Grădinaru, and I'm from Romania, from Radio Europa FM. Mr. President, did you discuss recently about the possibility of expelling PSD from the socialist group? I mean, the situation of Romania, and how do you think will affect the Romanian voters next year in May for the elections for the European Parliament? Thank you.
This was a question, thank you for that question. This was a question that was brought across by the one or the other voice to me as the group president. And I have to underline that this is a basic misunderstanding of the architecture of a group in this European Parliament. In my group, in the SD, as in the other groups, you do not have delegation members, you have individual membership. So after a European election, me being a German Social Democrat, I personally have to sign into the role of the group SND. Not a German delegation is becoming a member, me personally. I am becoming a member. When can a group president expel an individual member? You never can expel delegations because they are not members. You can expel an individual member if there is proof, and we did that in the past. I personally remember 2 occasions in my political lifetime where we expelled individual members when they have undergone a major failure, a major conflict with the rules of the group. So if there is corruption, if there is lobby interference in your political behavior, if you denounce your comrades on the basis of lies, this is, for instance, a reason to be expelled from a group, but it is normal in a political group that you have an exchange about the political cause and that you criticize each other. There is very often criticism within a political group on the correct line to be taken either in European scale or in domestic policies. This is also our everyday work, what we have to do. We are criticizing each other from different points of view. We are working together to improve, but the situation, when do you expel a delegation, has nothing to do with the real architecture in this house.
And the second question, please.
I think we have to close maybe one question here and then we close and go outside if there are further questions.
Thomas Friedrich, VDE Nachrichten. Ganz kurz zum mittelfristigen.
Just very briefly on the MFF, there's a vote on that tomorrow. Do you also share the position that there should be more money than Oettinger is suggesting and there should be no cuts when it comes to the agriculture budget in spite of the fact of Brexit?
Das, was wir sagen,
I think what we're saying comes from a different perspective, a different point of view. We're saying in these discussions we want a budget framework that enables us to change. As I've just said, I think the UN Sustainable Development Goals are important references for us. If you mention agricultural policy, CAP, then we want changes when it comes to the CAP. We want to move away from these industrial silo approach to agriculture. You can fund economies of scale without making losses in terms of quality of production or animal welfare or regional economic circuits, sort of front plate circuits. I think in all these policy fields we need change. That's my position when it comes to the CAP. The question is, of course, the level, and of course we are quite clear on that. If you want Europe to take on more and more when it comes to migration, refugees, common border policy, if you want the EU to do more when it comes to research and development, or when it comes to sort of a coordinated security and defence policy, then of course that can't be at the expense of other areas of the budget. We are opposed to budget lines when it comes to North-South development aid being reduced. I think if we are to take on other responsibilities, and I think member states have to understand that they need to endow the EU budget accordingly.
A lot, and have a good week. If there are further questions, I would suggest that we take them outside. Merci.